Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. I'm your host, Tom Dutta. And hey, give us a like on the screen there to the YouTube channel so that we can get the live production out to you in the future and we can do more of these shows. Well, we're live streaming today. It's the next generation of taping for podcast. We're actually letting you peek into the studio to see the conversation with our guest. He's in the green room. We're live streaming across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. That's a mouthful, but we're there. And today I'm really excited. The guest I have on today, this is going to be a fun, hard-hitting, total mind-blowing experience. He's also written a book. Let me tell you a little bit about him before I bring him on the screen. His name is Arnaud Henneville-Wedholm. You know, these guys who have three names, he's already messing with me. I thought he was, because he lives in Sweden, he was Swedish, but he just told me he's French. So we'll have to ask him about that. He's a consultant, lecturer, head of sales and business development at GLOBHE, GLOBHE. We'll have to find out how you say that. He's also the founder of multiple startups, including internalDesk, a SaaS platform for enterprise collaboration, where he served as COO. His interest areas include entrepreneurship, neuroscience, resilience, and making the world a better place. Lives in Stockholm, Sweden, which is cool, with his wife and three children. And he's written a book called How Hard Can It Be? And, you know, no spoilers here, everybody, but we're going to talk about a journey. He's written it as a fable, a real, I guess you call it, could be a Hollywood movie, about what it's like to really get into that world of being a startup and the journey you take. So everybody here is Arnaud. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Tom. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I know you're excited. It was fun getting you on, and I could see that bubbling over. There's something about that smile and energy from you. Pretty good for a guy who's been through the journey over quite many years that you have. I want to start off just by getting you to hold up. Usually I'll bring this in later, but I think it's notable. Hold up the book that you wrote and tell us the title.
Right. So there you go. So the title is How Hard Can It Be? And there's a subtitle to it, which, if I frame it well here, so it's the startup lessons from trying, and as you can see in between brackets here, it's and failing to take down Facebook, and that's the whole idea of the book.
All right. Fantastic. And by the way, that's part of what got my attention, but also the other part about it was the word failure, because I'm going to be honest with you that, you know, this is a book that many entrepreneurs wouldn't write because, you know, I've interviewed people on my show and they tend to come on and talk about how great they are and the successes. But, you know, that's one of the reasons why I let you in, man, is because I think that there's some real integrity and no ego here in this book. But before we get into that and the story of the journey from the business, go back to your early years. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and your start in life.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as you introduced nicely, I'm actually French. So, as you can tell from my name, I've got a double name because I'm married to a Swede and I'm currently living in Sweden. And we agreed on having a double name, and that what makes me Swedish. But otherwise, purely French, 100% French. Been living in France initially. I was born in Africa, actually, and as a young kid, I've lived abroad quite a lot. So born in Africa, been traveling and living in the Middle East as a youngster, and then did my education in France until I moved to Asia, actually, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Bangkok. And lived there for a while, and then moved further in different countries, and eventually ended up in Stockholm, where I pursued my career after my education, and then, as I explained in the book, we moved quite a bit as a family down to Africa again, and the whole journey of the startup and my life pretty much to that day goes across continents.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm gonna call you our nomad because
That's
it's
a
like
good one.
we could put a map on the screen like they
Yeah,
had
I
in
love
India.
it.
It's the movie where the plane's going, but we'd be over here right now. Uh, so your mom and dad, were they entrepreneurs from business, and all this movement you had, was that growing up following your parents, or was that more in your young adult life?
So yeah, initially, so not at all in the entrepreneurial business or the no, not really. My father was working with the French railway, and at that time in the 80s, France was pushing locomotives in former French colonies, and so that explained how we moved around. And my mother followed because she was a teacher, so she
Yeah.
could get a spot in different French colleges. But then I guess I picked it up from being traveled around, and it's very hard for me to stay in one single place for too long. So it started hitching after a few years. And yeah, now we're back in Stockholm after for like 2 years or so since the pandemic. And so far we're loving it here, even though it's a bit coldish compared to Africa, where we just came back from.
Yeah, hey, you're talking to a guy who's in west coast of Canada, so we're used to moderate temperatures. I think I was telling you offline there, Arnold, that when I grew up as a kid, I was babysitting these two young children down the street from where I lived, and they're both Swedish, Johan and Christina. And the parents, the father worked for Volvo, so that's when I first got to know the culture. Beautiful people. It is an amazing country, and I get the best of both worlds here, everyone, with Arnold, because I'm a home chef. People who follow my Instagram, they'll know that, I escaped my childhood cooking and baking, and I've watched every show. But yesterday, it's funny timing. I was watching Jacques Pepin, or his show, and he's talking about Julia Child and just some of the great things that France has given us in the area of cuisine. So it's really fun to talk to you, man. If you come up to Vancouver, we're gonna go find a good French restaurant, or I'll come out your way. So, was childhood good? I'll start this way because there's something that drives us. Sometimes we pick up seeds in our development. Was everything good in your childhood? Did you have any challenges personally or gut punches that you had to work through?
No, not particularly. Yeah, everything was fine. Living abroad and uh, beside my time in the Middle East, we're actually living in Iraq, and that was during the war uh,
Wow.
in '83. I think it was '83 to '86 or something like
Yeah.
that. And so
What was it like in Iraq? Just quickly, I mean, were there any experiences that were fairly traumatic or scary? Because a war is a war, right?
yeah, for sure. So there were a few. I mean, naturally, alarms going off,
Yeah.
and you having to run to hide for potential bombs dropping and things like that. But at that time, I guess I was young and innocent, and for me, it was more like a Rambo movie. So
Rambo movie, I love it.
Stallone movie. So I was actually enjoying it.
Wow.
Um, so no big trauma there. But I guess in
And
terms of, yeah, maybe that has built my resilience, and that's something we're gonna go through.
yeah, that's interesting, and that's part of why I started off this way after reading your book. I have read the whole book, everybody, and just to prove, so we can have those who are watching the video of this later or even now, there it is. How
Awesome.
hard can it be? What a cool cover. By the way, the nicest thing about this, besides the book and the meeting you, the author, was it arrived in an envelope from Sweden. And my daughter was here for Christmas. She's from the other side of the country, and I kept the envelope, man, because it's got all these cool stamps and it's in blue, my favorite color, and there's writing on it I can't even understand. It's like I got my first envelope from Sweden. How cool is that? Uh, the Africa part's interesting too. Just for a moment, I have a good friend. I grew up. He was a corporate litigator. Ronnie, I call him. Grew up in Cape Town, and he was Jewish. He brought his children here, but he was telling me some of the experiences just even in the country that shaped him. So I think resilience, everybody, is what we're going to get today from a man who's seen. I call you world traveled because when you're world traveled, maybe your brain has a very different perspective. I love reading books and also using the Kindle device. And to show you my diligence, I have 7 pages of notes
Oh my
from
God.
Kindle. And so I'm going to get deep into the book with you because that's why we're here. Who is Lovisa?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Lovisa was the daughter of my co-founder.
Ah,
So it's a very so the book is dedicated to her.
nice.
um, and as so you really touched on the real emotional part of that journey right off. um, and part of what I want to show with the book, actually, that it goes beyond, being an entrepreneur. It goes beyond you and putting your time and sweat on a personal level. Obviously, it involves a lot of people, and the first thing you think of naturally is your direct co-workers, your team, and your customers and your investors and all the people that put trust in you. But it naturally extends your circle of influence, extend to naturally your close family, but also your extended family, which is the family of your co-workers, and in that case, my co-founder. So unfortunately, she passed away when we were doing the startup journey, which lasted for 6.5 years. And that's the kind of things that you don't really plan for as you set up to take on the world with your business idea. But as as life goes and happens, a lot of things happen, and shit does happen along the way. So you that happened to us, to him, and that was
Yeah,
traumatic for everyone. And so I decided long after. I mean, of course, it was really hard for everyone, but I decided after writing the book that this was a book for naturally for her, but for my business partner, because yes, I wrote the book. We went through the journey together, but I always say that uh, if someone was rough, if someone showed grit and resilience, he did. Magnus, my partner,
yeah,
did that way more than I did, because if you can imagine going through that kind of trauma and coming back and putting in the time and efforts and hours
yeah,
to push down and really, with all the stress that the typical business venture uh, involves, and having your life being completely thrown away like this, and still having the stamina, the energy, and the desire to complete that journey that we had started together. I think that was remarkable, and that's why I decided
yeah.
to open the book and as it dedicates to her.
Well, Arno and everybody, this is a teaching moment. First of all, I want to honor you and say thank you for sharing that, being vulnerable. When you get the book, everybody, and by the way, I'm going to make a call to action here. Get Arnold's book. We're going to show it a few more times and read it. But how authors get known is, I'm an author. We aren't known unless you read it, but you post a review on Amazon, post a review on Goodreads.com, so people will know about the book. It actually triggers the bookstores and sales reps through Amazon to promote the book as you create that. So thank you for sharing the beautiful story and dedication of Lovisa. This was a loss from, I remember reading about Magnus's daughter, right? And it
Yeah.
was leukemia. Uh,
Right.
how old was she?
Three.
Yeah, thank you. This is about the hero's journey trading stories. So we're talking to each other today. I just want to share with you something very quickly because I got emotional when I read that part or heard you say that 3 years ago I was doing the ride for cancer. It's a 225-kilometer ride on bicycle, up and down hills in the sun and rain for a friend of mine who lost his daughter to leukemia at age 11. And that was the 10th year they were doing the ride, and they were going to raise up past $10 million total. So it was a big anniversary. Funny how the story goes. I did the first day and slipped in a bathtub having a shower the first night, and put a hole in the tub and had my first serious brain injury. And I am still recovering from that today. But I remember on that ride that as we were at the starting line, Arnaud, and there were 1,600 bicycles and the sun was coming up. We were at what's called Cloverdale Fairgrounds, ready to go. And they were on stage, and the guy who was introducing the ride said, take a look to your left, take a look to your right. And they said, see all the bicycles that have yellow flags. And those were people who were either battling cancer or who had somebody who passed from cancer. So last part of the story, I'm on the riding, and this guy whizzes by me, and he looks like he's about 70 years old. And I'm going like, excuse me, what? Come back here. He's got a yellow flag. I saw him at the first rest stop, and I said, what's your story, man? And he was on chemo. And dude, ever since that moment, I remember saying, I'm not complaining about my life anymore. I mean, people who have cancer don't have a choice, and it's a tough journey. So thank you for that dedication. So I want to get into the book, but I want to have a bit of fun with you. I'll usually do this later in the show, but I think we want people watching and listening to this to stay on till the end, because there's so much you're going to learn from Arnaud about this story that I have written a review, and we're going to reveal it to you today. So just stand by. I'm going to put it on the screen for you here, and you'll be able to see this in a moment. So the book, there it is, your first, an international review from Vancouver, Canada, posted on Amazon.ca. And I titled this review, A Book I Bet Most People Would Not Write. And there's a reason for this. I'm not going to read the whole review. People can find this in the show. I started out saying, how hard can it be? That's the question I had of the author on Arnaud's first book. The answer, successful startup, is within these pages. Refreshing, brave, and no BS. I loved reading. Believe most startup company leaders would never write. We never hear about stories from the fire, only the stories from egos and those who succeeded. And the last line, I just want to say this to honor you, man, is that the author succeeded by writing this book. I hope he knows that. So congratulations to you. One more thing I want to put up there, if I can get it on the screen. Oops, that's not what we wanted. Anyway, I'll send you the proof that it's posted on Amazon, and we're going to obviously do a little celebration here. Some fireworks for your 5-star review.
Awesome.
Well done, man. So, all right, let's get into the story. Hey, listen, I'm in my notes here. I'm going to throw some stuff at you. The chapter 5, Uninformed Optimism. This was, it says, if I left my job, we as a family would have to rely on Claire's salary to make ends meet, an idea she was understandably not too thrilled about. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of very much in line with where we started. I mean, it's you may have crazy ideas as an entrepreneur, and you're really excited and motivated by bringing them into the world, but sadly, or perhaps fortunately, I don't know, your ideas touch many more people than just yourself. And when you go crazy into your dreams, it inevitably becomes also the dream of other people that they have to follow you on those adventure. And so I was working as a consultant in management. I was doing change management for a large consultancy firm, and eventually, after many years of working with large corporations and trying to support them in cascading their internal initiatives, so sales initiative or strategic initiatives or whatever the case may be, eventually Magnus, we talked about, and I decided to try our own luck and try something together, and then that meant we had to let go of the comfort of our daily jobs, and that's hard. I mean, that's hard. That's really.
Yeah, I want to jump in there because the thing about it said Claire's your wife. I think that's the name, and everybody in the book, it talks about that. And I want to riff on this for a minute with you from my own experience. My background is 30 years as a paid executive, and then I became sort of I did a startup in 2015. So that's why this is so meaningful. but I want to throw something at you as well. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Founder about McDonald's, the startup of McDonald's.
Yeah,
And,
Ray Kroc, right?
yeah, Ray Kroc, and
Yeah,
it was played by the actor. His name escapes me, but he played Batman, believe it or not,
right.
Keaton.
Mhm.
And there was a part of the movie, my wife had talked about it a lot because she's a paid employee and I'm an entrepreneur. That Ray was having difficulty in his marriage because his wife wanted the comforts and wanted the stability, and she didn't share the vision. She didn't understand all these crazy things he was doing, and yet he could see the vision, but he could only see the first step of the staircase. But he was like you; he seemed to be driven to find his way to that vision, and they end up divorcing. And the last thing I wanted to say, and then I'll give it back to you, just to talk about your relationship with your wife and how you stayed strong, is Elon Musk. Everybody knows the name, I'm sure. He posted something on Instagram, a feed I follow, and he said, there's no option. You have to have a wife who sees the vision. If you don't, then find somebody else. Those are pretty harsh words. So tell me this. I think one of the lessons in the book for me was the strength. You made a comment behind every man is a successful woman. Talk a little bit about how you got through that skepticism and got her on side.
Yeah, well, luckily we had been together for quite a while, so she knew I was, driven, and this was not my first attempt, to be honest. So I did try before. I do open the book also. We talked about that where I started something in Southeast Asia, and so she knew. I mean, she knew me. She know the kind of person I am, and to her it was not odd or utterly weird that I had yet another idea to bring to the world. So even though I had a lot of work to do to convincing her that now it's time to try again, um, I mean, she resigned to she had to accept, because that's who I am. That's what I do.
Yeah,
I come
yeah,
up with
you're
stuff and try to make that happen.
Yeah, so maybe the unsung hero here, and we'll attribute the show to both you and obviously all your partners and people you have, but the wives, the Claire.
Yeah.
And I certainly know if you and I had time offline to talk further, I could tell you about my journey through my own startup with the trials and tribulations of my marriage. In fact, my wife and I want to write a book together, and we thought the title might be Blood, Sweat, and Tears, because
Right.
that's really the truth about what you go through. Uh, so just tell us about the idea. So I don't want to spoil the thunder, but there is a URL that you guys captured, and coming from consulting into an idea you had. Just give us a sense of what that idea is, and then we'll get into the story.
Sure. I mean, the idea. I mean, again, we are working as consultants, so we're working with behavioral change. So the core of what we do is understanding how we can help employees of large organizations develop the skills and the competencies in order to cascade, as it is said in the jargon of the industry, to cascade the initiative of the month, or of the quarter. And so that has a lot to do with developing, as I said, either internal capabilities, or internal mindset to make that happen. And sometimes it requires a big shift. Anyway, we're very focused on behaviors. We do change management, and at the same time as we do that, Facebook is really picking up speed. So we decided to launch our venture in 2012, and Facebook by then was sort of 6-7 years old, accelerating, getting speed, getting a lot of traction in terms of users. At that point, probably around 600,000-700,000, and in the offer of the service is a lot of nonsense, we feel, as management consultants, as behavioral experts. We cannot understand what drives 700,000 people scrolling through what we then called a feed of nonsense, and liking from their sofas pictures of cats with party hats, and content of
All right,
played
hold on. I got
by,
this image. I got to get it out of my head. A cat with a party hat. My daughter's a cat lover. That is hilarious.
oh dear.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just want to say
Yes.
this: that I do not like Facebook. I've been a Facebook user for a long time. My daughter's 24. She refuses to have a profile. I won't get into bashing Facebook. I'll tell you why I don't like it. If you listen to some of the things I do in my backstory, I think I mentioned my injury, brain injury. I slipped into depression. I'm a big advocate of mental health. And at the C-suite, the founder level where you sit, Arnaud, so many people have mental illness. Facebook is all about comparing yourself to others and becoming addicted to the dopamine hit, anticipating number of likes. It is completely, some people call it wastebook, and in your book, I love how you characterized waste of time. I just don't see the purpose behind it. So anyway, thank you for letting me vent on that. Carry on.
Awesome. I mean, you're totally on point, and that's what we notice at the same time. So not only you have this weird cultural behavior, it seems, and at the same time you have a lot of research popping up with how, just as you said, the use of Facebook leads to depression, leads to increase in teenage suicide. I mean, there's a lot, slowly but surely, a lot of research is being done, and is showing that, well, it's not quite healthy after all. And so that gets us quite intellectually busy, and we think that we can do something to hopefully turn this around. Again, we're driven by helping people become better versions of themselves, and we're looking for ways to go against Facebook, and find a mechanism, find a model to make that, and a proposition to make that compelling. And so what we find is that as people, we're all driven by being something greater than we currently are.
Yeah.
At least we have that idea in our heads, and it ties into the the needs that we have to self-actualize. The Maslow pyramid, the more comfortable you get into your life, as soon as you have your primary needs met, then you move up that pyramid, and eventually you reach the summit, which is all about who you become, right? What should you do with your life, and grow those
Yeah.
the capabilities.
Yeah. I want full screen. You hold up the book again and just tell us again, just quickly, the title.
Yep. How hard can it be?
All right, everybody. Yeah, we're talking to Arnaud here, who's the author of the book. How hard can it be? There's a byline there. He's pointing to it. Again, I gave it a 5-star review. I just shared that in the preview earlier in the show. Please get it. Please read it, and please post a review, which helps his knowledge and wisdom get known. As we go further in the story, you're going to learn why more and more. I say that this is a book. This is somebody who has a lot of wisdom. Something you said was interesting to me, and I love the positioning of, we all desire to be our the best version of ourselves. There's so many ways to say that, and you can tell me what you think about this. One of the things I struggled with all my life, and it came from my childhood, and I meet many people who are successful, but I said this in my TED talk when I did in 2020, that I realized later in life, in developing myself, Arnold, that I was a self-worth chaser, not a success chaser. So I climbed the ladder and became a CEO and very successful in business. But when I got there, I was empty, and there was a hole in my soul. And it comes from things that happened earlier in my life. One of the things I always ask myself when I read a book like yours or meet somebody talented is why? Why did you start the company? And that, I think what you said partly answered my question, that there was a deeper meaning and purpose behind this. It wasn't just about money, right? It was about doing something to be in service or change the world. So let's fast forward in the story. We're going to give you snippets, everybody. Not going to steal it all, because we want you to get this book. But there you were. And so the company started. You had this idea, which you greatly explained to us. We're now in chapter 7, Growing Pains, and page 76 on my reading. I'm just going to read this and give it back to you. I put trouble in the margin. We were in shock when we realized our engine for growth had stalled. What's going on?
Yeah, well, it's the startup journey, at its core. The startup, the journey is filled with ups and downs,
Yeah,
peaks and valleys, and trials and error and near death experiences, and you have all that in the journey, and we got a lot of those, like every startup who
yeah,
goes on that journey. And that, to piggyback on what you said when you open the forum here, most of the books that you can find are indeed written from a success perspective, because it's hard to talk about failure, and it's hard to, if you haven't made it, typically you would believe that failure is your own, right? You are the one who failed, where in fact,
that's right.
right, the project failed. So those who have failed along that journey haven't done what I've done, which is writing a book about it, because they feel that they lost self-worth. um, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
whole
we
topic
can.
we can discuss. um, but that's the essence of the journey, and that's part of the things I want to show with the book. It's not about the end goal, and to refer back to what you were saying, money, is irrelevant at the end of the day. You see a lot of people who are super successful, being CEOs or being billionaires, or whatever, and yet committing suicide, because the chase of the hunt of the money was fun for a little while, but once you have it, and you realize, well, actually that wasn't what would fulfill me, because what fulfilled people is, as we said, is becoming what they want to become, or becoming something that adds value to someone else. I like this sentence, like, your life, which is a bit weird to comprehend, but your life is not about you. It's
Yeah,
about all those people you can touch, you can impact. Um, and when you realize that, you forget about all these medals and trophies, and the chase, but focus on the moment, the now, and what you can do, and how much you can do with what you have currently, and how much you can grow, because at the
yeah,
end of the day, it all
yeah.
boils down to your own growth, and what you can achieve in the time you are given.
Yeah, I really love it. Everybody teaching moments all over the place here, and so in that chapter, when growing pains, I think one of the things you said, which is so meaningful as a lesson, Arno, is that a lot of the books and literature out there do point this amazing thing of starting your own business. You've got it all through your book. Information about, for example, you're going to fail 7 times before you reach success. We see in Canada or North American statistics that 90% or plus of small business, which, by the way, is the economic engine of the world. It's not big corporations, right? That they fail. The mindset. I just want to say this because you said something about millionaires, billionaires, or I think you said that, and then suicide. Everybody, this is really. I got to honor you, man. I love the fact that you've got such integrity to talk about this, but this is the human side. And I've done a lot of studying on brain science because of my own journey in the last few years. And there's neuromodulators. I'm getting a little techie with you here, but just doing this for a reason. There's neuromodulators in our brains. Some people might recognize serotonin, dopamine. If you've ever met anybody that's being treated for depression, Arno, and you talk to their psychiatrist, you'll start hearing about levels and balancing out levels. And I said this to somebody I met years ago, that my brain, when I became a father and a husband, let's say it's a 1-ton truck, a red 1-ton truck, and it's built for a payload of 1 ton. And then you have children, and then you get married, and then you have a job, you become a founder. All of a sudden, the pressure and the load is 5 tons.
Mm.
And I'm just going to say openly that I believe that it's not a matter of if, but when you experience some form of mental illness.
Mm.
And if you can't wake up in the morning and experience joy and happiness from within, serotonin is a neuromodulator that makes you feel just okay or happy with what you have. And so I met a lot of people, high performing founders, CEOs, executives in my time, that are doing what you were doing for the wrong reason. It's because there's something missing. The dopamine is anticipation of reward, and so that gives you that adrenaline and that great rush. So thank you for going there a little bit about mental health, you taking care of it. I just want to read something else here. You brought up something when the company started having some challenges. You brought up a comment about the ice bucket challenge. Tell us
Mm.
about that. I think it said you took 6 months and I put failure to test. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we're doing challenges. So to challenge Facebook, the idea is that we challenge. So through that mechanism of challenge, we create this application that allows people to challenge themselves and one another. And the big idea is that as we are all driven by challenges and by becoming, creating something greater for ourselves. The challenge would allow us to really take on that big dream that we all have and actually broadcast it to the world, or at least broadcast the completion of it. And so we see a lot of people challenging themselves and challenging their friends to all sorts of things, from to start training for a marathon, or learn Chinese, or stop smoking, or lose weight, or whatnot. And yet, as a lot of challenges are created, very few are completed. And that's human behavior in a nutshell. Nothing really goes viral. Nothing happens. People do not complete their challenges. And people find excuses for themselves, even though initially they did commit themselves to do something different. We didn't ask them to do so. There was no gun on their head for them to do so. They, from themselves, from within, decide that they need to do something different. And yet, when given the opportunity, very few people would do it. And that is tricky. I mean, that is human behavior in a nutshell. You get busy with all sorts of things. You get to travel.
Yeah.
Not anymore. But life happens, and then you deprioritize what apparently was a big priority of yours. And it's interesting to have this conversation right now, because this is January, and a lot of people are signing up for gym memberships.
Setting goals, yeah.
Right? And you see this every year. In January,
the biggest funny about that is most gym memberships don't get used.
Well, exactly, because it's easy to have big dreams, right? It's very easy to come up with something crazy, like I'm gonna build up so much muscle. I'm gonna be a CEO in 2 years. I'm gonna do an ultra marathon, whatever, or really whatever your ambition is. And if you have too big ambitions, and you look at the big thing, and you cannot break it into small pieces that you would swallow slowly as you go forward, and create that dopamine, not from getting the actual thing at the end, but from the release of it as you achieve small steps towards that success, right?
Yeah, it's so well said. Everybody, we're talking to Arnaud, the author of the book, and I'm going to hold it up this time, How Hard Can It Be? And he talks about success, but also failures of a startup. The interesting thing about dopamine is that I learned is people think it's when you get the actual goal, the reward, but dopamine's released in anticipation of reward. And it's just so counterintuitive to me. What a cool idea, though, everyone, that you're hearing that. I mean, it sounded cool to me that, hey, why don't we gamify this thing to help people set challenges and use it at, maybe in the workplace or whatever. But then again, do you want to be online and, have somebody kick your butt or to show that you're failing in your challenge? Hey, dude, I'd love to get into a game with you and kick your butt, because I think you would push me to the highest level, given that you've got that resilience. But I got to say this because my brain's multidimensional, that I had a journey in my head about all those and I've never watched them because I just don't like them. Those virtual reality shows, like Everybody on the Island, they're competing against each other. It's all prescripted, blah blah blah. And I guess that's really the truth here. That if I open myself up to vulnerability on Facebook as a human being, and I show that I'm failing at a challenge, I got to deal with the mindset of that, right? What are people going to think about my fears? Uh, and I love the idea, because if you could accomplish that, if you could pull that off, right? Talk about a ripple effect in terms of teaching people resilience and how to actually, achieve. I want to get back into the book for a minute here in my notes. That you had a big win, and the chapter 8, we see the word pivot. So we're talking about your startup journey, and the company started struggling because the idea didn't seem to stick. But then there's this word pivot, and I wrote down here, you had first client, and I wrote the symbol $ equals $. And I think you were looking to get some funding, and there's a very interesting comment, which seems like, but it's like you can't raise money without an income stream. And I think there are many startups people I know who are busy with the idea, getting it out there, but they don't realize there's no cash flow, and you can't bring on new people and build without finance. So something happened. You had a big win, and then you met somebody named Pio Peo. Tell us a bit about that, as that part of the story.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, eventually, as we try to displace Facebook, and we kind of are not successful, not because of our own limitations. I mean, the platform was working, etc., but because people do not actually do what they themselves commit to do, because it's human nature and it's hard. We decide to take that challenge platform into the corporate world, and this time, since we have that wonderful platform that does the trick, we invite corporate leaders, HR directors, senior vice president of sales, whatever the function is, and they manage people, to challenge their own staff to do things, to like a sales challenge, for example, to increase sales for the quarter, or to reduce inventories for service aftermarket people, for example, or to talk about corporate values in a large organization. And that is fairly easy to do, because the leader has something on his mind, and he or she has a strategy to be implemented. And the idea of suddenly gamifying the project is quite appealing. And what we want to do, instead of the typical change management way, which is top down, right? So you have this strategy that you need to execute, and then you cascade it down through the organization, and every level management has his own task of things to do, and eventually it trickles down to the front employees. Here we want to bring the frontline employees into the change process itself by making it more engaging, more fun, more gamified. So that works really well, actually. So we get to challenge many large organizations, Fortune 50 companies, to do challenges with us across the globe, and that is a very exciting time. So that was the first pivot. So we did 3 pivots, 2 main pivots, and so that was the first one, from a consumer-driven product service to a B2B product.
And then I wrote in my notes here, I think it's on page 96, it says we were extending the life of our company by at least 5 months. There was something really interesting that came out of this reading in this area for me. And there was, I think it was Payo or somebody said that if you have too much cash reserve in the bank, you're not being innovative or taking enough risk. And this is where I step back, and it's a teaching moment. I want to ask you to talk about it. My wife and I, when we were paid employees, she's a manager, I was an executive, we never had that issue. There was always that paycheck coming. And when I started being an entrepreneur in 2016, man, my mindset was all screwed up, because I wanted to have a year's worth of reserve in the bank, and I was stressing out over it. And here you are, and you got this thing going, and you have 5 months, and you wrote that gave the company a lifeline and breathing. Tell us that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but that's probably the way it is, right?
It is the way it is. I mean, again, it's back to the, if you are comfortable, if you are too comfortable, regardless of the situation, and
Yeah.
that can apply throughout, I mean, across your, the different buckets of your life. If you are comfortable, if you're watching TV, enjoying popcorns, you're certainly not going to put on your sneakers and go on for a run if it's -10. Um, and so the same goes for companies and for startups. Definitely, if you have too much cash in the bank,
Yeah.
well, you become lazy, you become complacent, you don't stretch yourself too much. Whereas if you don't, well, there is no alternative but going out and making it happen and trying hard and really stretching yourself to, making that sales and doing all you have to do to make it work. And it's no surprise that the moment a company starts growing, it becomes harder to maneuver because, well, you recruit different types of people, the company grows, eventually you become a number amongst the mass of people, and the vision is not shared
Yeah.
enough, right? So there's the comfort idea, and keeping that discomfort alive, I think, is key to driving engagement. And again, you can relate that whether it's in your private life or your corporate life. You need to be on the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody, again, you had 5 months cash flow. If you knew that after that your bank account was empty, there'd be a bit of a panic. And this is the whole mindset why I think a lot of people have to read your book, because in order to be a startup or even a consultant, self-employed, you have to understand this. I want to share something with you on this. That I have a friend in Boston, and he started up and became one of the largest uh, writing companies, like they help authors write books. And I met him when I started to write my book. And he said to me, he said he kept hitting this wall of cash flow, and he quit his job. And then he had that same pressure in the family because the wife, was worried. And he said a guy took him out for lunch. It was a mentor, and had coffee, and on a cocktail napkin, he drew out this diagram, and it changed his life. And he said, the guy said, okay, I want you to write down your basic household expenses, what you need to pay your bills. Then I want you to take, uh, what do you say, 60% of that. And that's the number you have to cover. So you have to cover that from your wife's income. Go out and find a side hustle to make up the difference. And then keep building your business. And once your business exceeds, the cash flow exceeds, then, you can start pulling back the side hustle. And what's really interesting, Arnaud, is I didn't know that starting my own business. So I went all in and gave up a career that was a 6-figure. And then I came across this article that Warren Buffett, I think you know the name, he's a billionaire, and there was a comment that I didn't know this, but I think it's fairly accurate, that most millionaires acquire their wealth after the age of 55. And it also went on to say that most wealthy people running businesses, they don't talk about it, but they do have a side hustle. They've got something else that, whether it's another business or it's another form of stability. So very interesting. I wanted everybody just to have that as a teaching moment from Arnaud here. You guys started running into cash flow issues, signed a big client, had this sense of, we're breathing now. One more thing I want to put it back to you on is, your background is consulting. I think you've done different things. Looks like sales too.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the thing I learned, and I've worked with some entrepreneurs in their business, that we only have a certain personality. I have my strengths and I have my limitations. In my career, maybe I have experience with operations, or maybe I have experience with sales. Tell us about when you step into that role of a founder. Most businesses, to me, start off the side of your desk. You and Magnus had an idea and, like, let's go after this. But then it's just the two of you. And as you show here, you can't hire people until you have cash flow and you have resources. But that means maybe you don't have all the skill sets needed. And I'll add this last point and then give it back to you to talk about that. There's a book that's well read by Napoleon Hill that's called Think and Grow Rich, that I'm a student of it in some of my work. And he came up with a success formula earlier on, the first, I think, on how people are successful. he studied Henry Ford and folks like that. And one of the principles in there, he said, was the mastermind, the power of masterminding, which I guess is like in business, maybe having an advisory board or a group of people you can get together with and share ideas with a common purpose. When I started my business, I really didn't have a mentor or a mastermind group. So I'm trying to say something here. My brain is a little bit cognitively challenged because of my injury. But what I'm trying to get at is you have to have the balls to say, I don't know everything. And, you guys were saying in your book here that you guys cut corners because you're trying to capture the market fast, but you got to have other people around. So how do you deal with that when there's just two of you? You can't afford to hire consultants. How do you manage those risks?
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant question, Tom. Well, you do what entrepreneurs do, right? They are multi-talented, or they try to be multi-talented. So we found ourselves being lawyers, being sort of consultants. We're kind of doing everything, but it's true that we had our core. We all have a core, and Magnus was definitely on the sort of administration, the very structure things that we have to do legally, and the financing part, and
Yeah.
all that very structured work. Whereas I was more the cowboy in a way, the one doing the relationship with the clients, the one actively going to potential prospects. So yeah, we had split the company like that in terms of responsibility, and then obviously we had outsourced coding and programming. So we
Yeah.
created this little team, because that was the core of what we were doing initially. But yeah, totally. You can't know what you can't know, right? And I think that you should really focus on what you're best at, because it's so hard to. I mean, life is too short to try to master everything. You can't. I mean, you have right. You have
Yeah.
an inclination to. It's interesting. It's probably from your DNA, or I don't know, the programming that you are given from birth, from the culture you evolve in, and all these shortcuts that you're being downloaded with. But you have something that is within you, and you have to sort of unearth it, really understand what it is, and go 100% in it, because that's what you're here for. And that's a life's mission. What are you here for? Why do you do what you do? And yeah, we can connect that to the book, and the purpose of the book. But I think,
Yeah, hold that book up again.
yeah.
Everybody, you're talking to the author of the book, How Hard Can It Be? There it is. You
Oops.
get it. Yeah, it's
Here it is. Yes.
perfect. It's a story written as a story about his 5 or 6 year journey with a startup project that went through many ups and downs, and eventually, we'll hear the end of the story in a minute. Thank you for holding that up. I want to go a little bit deeper on something that you, at some point in the book. I think I wrote chapter 11, Business Unfiltered. You were doing talk to some MBA students, and I think you had this talk about business unfiltered, and the word unfiltered had a specific meaning. Just tell us a little bit about that, because here you are talking to young minds who are obviously maybe looking to be startups or entrepreneurs themselves.
Yeah. This is a funny story, actually. So the book is the real thing, right? It's the behind the scenes of entrepreneurship. It's what really happens during the journey, and as you say, it's the unfiltered version. So as far as this particular anecdote goes, I got invited to my former university to deliver a talk about entrepreneurship and innovation, and startup life to 200 MBA students. And so obviously I had never done that, but I threw myself into the experience, flew to the UK, and somehow made it in time. I explained the whole story as it unfolds, and step onto stage and the stage, and deliver that keynote or that lecture to these students. And as I prepared the lecture, I was thinking of, okay, what would I have wanted myself to hear if I had been sitting in that in that amphitheater. And what I would have wanted to hear is the truth, again, the no BS version of it. And I think what we're fed with today and everywhere, not only in books and not only specifically in entrepreneurship or business, I mean, everywhere you look at, whether it's on TV or on the billboards that you pass by where you drive your car or on Instagram, is solely focused on success. I mean, the shiny part of it, the glamour, the cash, the how easy it is, just start a side hustle, struggle a little bit, and then get purchased, and welcome to the unicorn land, where you have rainbow sunshine and free popcorn. But it doesn't work this way, unfortunately. And we're sold that horseshit kind of story, but that's not the truth. It gives people a false impression. It delivers this narrative of it. I mean, it's almost like it's built into our culture that if you try a little bit, it's going to be okay. You're going to get acquired and life will be good. Well, sadly, it's not. And so the talk I delivered was really that. I mean, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And as we initiated this call with, it's the ups and downs, it's the failures, and it's the pivots, and it's the struggle, and it's the personal issues, and it's the family problems, and it's all of it. And eventually, even if you do all you have to do and you work hard and you have successes and it all looks fine, it still doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, because that's the case for 9 out of 10 of us. It's 90% of us who fail. And my take on the talk was really to deliver that. And that's also what triggered the book afterwards, is that reflection post the entire journey. Let's stop talking solely about shiny success and the things that happens to the 0.00001%, the Elon Musk, the Steve Jobs, Richard Branson that flies in space. This is all fantastic. I mean, we love those stories. They're very entertaining, engaging. Perhaps they even motivate some of us. But in any case, do they help you as a young entrepreneur start your journey and actually appreciate what it takes to make it work? And so that's really what I come up with. What I bring to the table is the real thing, the real journey, no BS. If you want to do the startup journey, that's what you have to go through.
Yeah, you and I got to eat some popcorn together and do another show on this. I mean, if you're okay with time, I'm going to keep you on for a bit longer, because there's so much I want to talk to you about. I wrote down, he talked about in the book, everybody, about the term, the unfiltered. The word he was intending was, this is just another way of saying bullshit. And I'll just read right out of that passage. I wanted to talk about the things nobody ever heard or read about failing, being depressed, about being forced to embrace failure and pivot. All the things I wish someone had told me before I embarked on the journey myself. And I think this is the thing. Couple things I want to share with you. I've in my career, especially after I pivoted from being a paid CEO, I was hired as a general manager in a company, and the owner was kind of high performing and a little bit dysfunctional in his later years. And he struggled and fell into depression himself. And there was things I experienced in that company that I hadn't experienced before. Like, I started looking, this was a long time ago, of course, but I started looking at how he managed finances. And he had a junior finance person, but he would have all the invoices come in. And then we would sit in a room, because I'm the general manager. He says, well, okay, we'll pay that one. Nope, we'll pay that one. No, not that one, that one. So he's playing Russian roulette and deciding based on his priorities and his cash flow. And there was one experience that it hit me when I read your book, because you talked about it. Man, we were at a point of missing payroll once, and it wasn't a good situation. And I was the one who had to face the employees. He used me as a shield. And there's nothing scarier than having a company that is on the verge of missing payroll. I won't get you into that story, but everybody in Arnaud's book, he talks about that, where, you guys have some receivables and you had to pull the trigger and do some creative things. That's what we don't hear about. And that's what MBA students, and I love what you've taught us here, need to hear about. The other thread of this is, and I'm gonna call you out on this because that's what the show is about. It's about integrity, but also you have to be accountable. On page 159, I wrote down here unhealthy, and you even said that. I said life was simply too hectic. I usually fired up my laptop at 5:30, worked a solid hour before the rest of the family emerged from their bedrooms. At night, I did not normally hit the sack till 1:30. It was not a very healthy lifestyle. I love the fact that you said that, man, because you got to say it. Sleep deprivation, that's the number way to kill your cognition and your performance. But these MBA students, I'm learning, just you're a guy who knows about change management. They want mentors, coaches, not bosses. They won't work those kind of hours. So we're building a culture, to create something. If we're a leader and we're out of balance, it doesn't quite work. It doesn't work that well. And so thanks for sharing that in the book. Want to just get you back into another part of this. You went to Africa, opened the business there, and then you started training to do a marathon. I started reading that and going like, what the hell? Here, why aren't you just eating popcorn and sleeping? Oh, okay, you were running 5K, now 42. Is that a little ego, like I got to drive for more and more, or was that really just to you part of a test to keep yourself, to challenge yourself to keep moving forward?
Yeah, no, I guess both. Throwing myself into discomfort and sort of forgetting the daily problems that we had, and I decided to go for a marathon. I had absolutely no experience in it. I was not a runner per se. I mean, I was running around the block, but that was about it. I had very little time to prepare, and yet I did it. And I explained so the reason I talked about this in the book is because there is a lot of similarities between taking that kind of challenges on yourself, which is a physical challenge, and actually pulling it through, right? Doing what you have to do in order to make it happen. And that requires some consistency of effort, requires really discipline, because you do have to wake up in the morning and put in the hours, do that run when you don't feel like it. Skip the Saturday wine because you have a 20K training in the morning at 5. So, and the relevance, actually, the reason I mentioned that as well in the book is that you can find similarities with the entrepreneurial journey, because people will drop along the way, right?
Yeah.
So just like in startup, if you manage to keep yourself alive long enough, you might actually win. You might actually make it to the
I love that analogy.
line, right?
This is such a good metaphor.
Yeah.
That's such a good metaphor and analogy, that it's like the marathon. You only one person crosses the finish line, and many of the guys drop, right? And it's like, how do you, even if you never win a marathon, how can you keep picking yourself back up? I think that's one of the things everyone that's teaching throughout this book about building his startup. Now, you pivoted 3 times. I'm just going to fast forward. They say 7 failures. We won't get into all of them because people will read it. But they get to this point here where chapter 15, the party is over. And I read that, and I'm just going to paraphrase something here. What they were. So it looks like Facebook kind of jumped ahead in some ways. And then you wrote, "Holy shit, I yelled when I first read about it. I felt like the sky had fallen. For almost a year, we had been telling prospective clients who had a hard time understanding what the heck a social intranet was, that the easiest way to think about it was to think of Facebook, but for work. We had been gradually warming up plenty of big corporations to the idea, and then boom, there it was. The real Facebook at work was about to launch." Tell us about that. Wow.
Yeah, so that's the full arc of the book, is that we start with a B2C idea, right? A business to consumer idea, where we aim at challenging Facebook on their own turf, and then eventually, as we evolve in the journey, we end up pivoting so much that the last thing that we do is the so-called enterprise social network, which is basically the
Yeah.
central, you know what it is, right? Where people work
Yep.
centrally online through this, Facebook at work. But back in 2016, that was not obvious, because the main ways of working online was through the typical architecture of SAP, or working through your IBM sort of software, which was not social. And so when we came up with that feed, lookalike Facebook, where departments were connected to and could all interact and share files and discuss ideas, and anyone could contribute. Of course, an HR leader would think that, okay, this is like a crazy idea. Why would you want to bring Facebook inside my organization? And then eventually we did sign a few clients, but we were really in shock where Facebook decided to launch their own version of it, with obviously all the backup that they have. They were an overnight success, which we couldn't keep up with. So it's from Facebook to Facebook, and today it's called Meta, but
Yeah.
back then it was called Facebook. So it's the full journey. I mean, I know you love the hero's journey, but there you have it. Really.
Yeah, no, it's a great story, everybody. In the book, which as we wrap up in a few minutes, we'll talk about how you can get that, give it a read, and I'd like you to post a rating on Amazon for Arnaud. I want to ask you, was there ever any regret after, when you reflected back about openly talking about Facebook so much? Let me just say this, that our brains are wired to connect to thoughts and emotions, and so I'll use a story, I guess. I can't divulge who, but I I had a corporate client. I went and did some training, and I know the CEO, and their whole vision, and they talked about it with their staff and everybody, was, we want to be the Starbucks of our industry. And it was a very different industry. And I remember saying to him, I said, dude, you may be right about this. I think you are, because what you're trying to do makes a lot of sense. You're trying to create an environment away from home, another place away from home, etc. But I said, if you focus a lot on them, uh, you know, be different, and because everybody's going to keep thinking about Starbucks, and if Starbucks pivots or Starbucks starts failing, you don't want to be tied to that. What makes it your vision? So throughout this whole thing, I think in the book you talked about it a little bit, but I'm assuming you weren't pitching and using openly that, we're going to be like Facebook, or was that part of what you did?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it was just we would say we are like, when people would not understand, or HR director would not really understand
Yeah.
what we were after, we would say, well, think of Facebook, but inside your company.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
to help them, because we all come with our own baggages, and it's easier to relate when you know what one is talking about. Yeah.
Awesome. Just going to the end here, it says, after page 214, after more than 6 years of roller coaster emotions, from anxiety to euphoria, bliss to desolation, we collectively chose to throw in the towel. How did that feel? Take us back in that moment. It was you and Magnus, I guess, primarily, right?
Yeah, and our staff then, I mean, our core staff, let's say. That's an interesting one. I've been reflecting a lot, as I do a lot of podcasts these days.
Yeah.
I reflect even further than the book itself, and I think giving up is really what it is, because, and it's a hard thing to say, and it's probably a hard thing to swallow as well for your listeners. I think eventually you give up. I mean, you decide, based on all the information that you have and all the time that you have spent and the energy and the money and the lost opportunities, you decide that you've had enough, that you've taken the lessons, and that is enough at this very point of time, and you decide to do something else. It's not that you actually fail like this. I mean, there's a lot of discussions around, if you Google reason for startup failing, you will find a couple of reasons, right? And they are always the same. Like it's well, we didn't have the product market fit, or we didn't raise enough money, or we didn't understand the customer. So there are a few things that people tend to tell to themselves. But what I found is that this is just your own story. You're making yourself a story, because the truth is you didn't find a way to make it happen. You didn't decide to lower your personal lifestyle, perhaps, cut the staff, change office, stop buying wine in favor of extending your lifeline for your company, and try harder. So you make that decision. It's all on you. It has nothing to do with the market environment or the time that is not okay. If you want to find that product market fit, well, then you just have to last longer and find it. So, and you can have that discussion. I like I've worked a lot with employee engagement, and I guess also a hard stuff to be talking about, perhaps. But I don't believe there is such a thing that employees are not engaged. It's not that, I mean, you decide not to be engaged ultimately. If you really believe in what you're doing, if it's part of your passion, and you wake up every day and you're so driven because you want to make this happen, then you'll be engaged.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. It's not just about the rainbow, whatever, and popcorn that you talk about. I want to just acknowledge, and first of all, love you and your story, man, and just your integrity. Everybody, the book, when you read it, it's all like this. It's truth. It's not BS. And very few books I've ever found in my career outline the details, the granular details. And so I want to just make a bit of a comment about this, that it's very easy for corporations who have buckets of funding, whether it's shareholder value or whatever, to try different things and fail because they have the funding to get back up again. Arnaud, I want to tell you just really quickly that one of the roles I had climbing the corporate ladder was a senior director role at one of our largest telecommunication companies. And they had just merged, and this goes back 20 years. And they came in, and it was traditional telephony back then, twisted copper pair wires, right? Payphones. Imagine that. And the CEO came in, was from the UK, son of a wireman, or a guy who climbed telephone poles, but very smart. They pivoted. The board said, we got to, and they saw the future. So they transformed the company into data, internet, wireless, all those things we see today that are part of a phone company. They merged another big telephone company in our province next door to British Columbia here. And so this became a multi-billion company overnight. They hired Boston Consulting Group. And I say this because you're a consultant. So, and now the CEO, and I don't mean this to label consultants, the CEO's view is consultants regurgitate information, they leave, they don't stay for execution, which is why I find you a maven, because not only everybody does Arnaud have consulting experience, but you also have execution experience from going through the startup curve, which makes you an asset, I think. Anyway, they started spending money like drunken sailors. This was a 7-8 billion company, and the stock price was $42 when I started there. Less than a year later, it was $15, $7 a share. Scary. And the shareholders started pounding and hitting the company hard. I was taken out for dinner. They put me on a program called Fueling Our Future, believe it or not. I mean, talk about a great way to spin this. There were 40 of us sitting in a room at a hotel, and the CEO stood up and said, "You're all here because you're leaders of the future of this company." And so there was a letter in front of us at our dinner plates. And then he said, "If any of you see yourselves in the future of this company, please leave now." And I'm telling you, my heart went into my throat. And he said, the reason why I say that is because all of you are going to work with the consulting group, and you're going to drive $500 million in costs out of this company. And we want 5,000 heads. And my heart just broke, man, because it's like, that's one of the things that drove me out of corporate, was this ridiculous. And they basically went so fast, they forgot that they had a union environment and culture. So they actually set up a business transformation office. And I know you know this because of your background, for change management, they hired a senior guy to run it. But they ran into all sorts of problems. And one of the things you said, which inspired me just minutes ago, is that that's why everybody, Arnaud, has integrity, that you have to know when to say we're failing. You have to know when to say we're hitting the wall and we need to stop. We need to do something different. So I'll finish the story with this. The CEO, when he stood up and said that to us, it scared the hell out of me, because I had just changed a 15-year career in banking to something completely different, had a young daughter, my wife. And he turned around and he called on a lady in the audience. He said, come up here. And he said, come up here. And he said, I want you to kick me in the ass. And he literally said, I want you to give me a kick in the ass. And then he turned around and he said, every one of you, I want you to know that the reason we're here is because of me. He says, my lack of accountability, my lack of, making the right decisions, or maybe going too fast with the wrong decisions. So he took personal responsibility. And I think that's one of the things that's rare, and why I'm going to finish with honoring you with an award here, that I wrote this down my paper. You've already succeeded by writing this book, because many people who will read it will be better positioned to actually go into the startup world, or if you're navigating these pivots, you're gonna be able to learn more to get through that. So thank you for writing this book and sharing your story. I think there's much more ahead for you. I want to honor you with an award here. I don't know if I told you you're getting this, but you might have known this from watching other episodes. So I'm going to full screen me for a minute here. There's a image behind me on the screen there. It's called the Challenge Coin. Challenge coins were started in World War II. And Arnold, they were given to people to basically for creating community. I had this coin handcrafted and designed in the United States. Sorry, Canada. And the front is the image of the show, hand painted raised letters. The back is actually Joseph Campbell's hero's journey narrative of the journey that you and I talk about we've taken and why we're connected. By receiving this, you continue to commit to using that passionate purpose of helping and changing the world, taking massive action and creating the life you deserve, but also helping other people do the same. Less than 50 of these a year go out, and I wanted it to create a tribe. We're in 17 countries now. When you put it in your pocket, you seriously make the commitment to keep moving. But just know you're connected to all of us, fellow Quiet Warriors, and there's power in that. So welcome to the Quiet Warriors.
Wow, super. Thank you. And wow, I love it. Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Now I got to get it in an envelope across to Sweden for you. So hopefully,
exactly. And I'll keep the envelope because it'll have some.
it'll have little beavers, and I'll put a picture of popcorn on there for you. It's a little bit Canadian. So on that note, everybody, get you to hold up the book one more time and tell us where they can get a hold of it. There it is.
Yeah, there it is. So actually, it's not hard to find, unlike the title. It sells everywhere on every platform, whether Amazon or Barnes and Noble or even Walmart. I saw it in Walmart. So that's if you are in North America, but also any smaller platforms, even locally, any markets. It's really globally available, from Italy to Germany, South Korea, Taiwan, wherever you want to get it. Just how hard can it be? We also have a website. It's called howhardcanitbethebook.com. And there I want to create this community of warriors, this community of entrepreneurs who want to be, want to go that journey and get more knowledge from me and what I went through. And so there is extra material for people who get the book. They send the receipt to the site email address, and they get right away an additional ebook with what I call the 7 traps on the road to startup success. We didn't get a chance to talk about them, but they are interesting sort of discussions around the typical stuff that you would encounter or you would look for. Like, I just give you one, the silver bullet. Like, we all dream of that magic sauce that if we do X or if we do Y, suddenly it's going to be, whoa, fantastic. But the silver bullet is a mirage, just like the unicorn. You need many bullets to make it happen. So I go through different of those ideas or traps, I call them, because they're real. And I explain the rationale. We talk about the dopamine release in the pursuit of success, not as an end goal. So I talk a lot of neuroscience and behaviors and traps that you can avoid as an entrepreneur. So thank you so much, Tom, for having me. It was a real pleasure. I had a blast discussing with you. I'm really happy to have made it to your show. So thanks a lot, Tom.
You're welcome. It's almost like a flashback to Iraq, a few blasts along the way, and my dark sense of humor here. We haven't finished talking, you know that, and they say that curiosity satisfied is opportunity lost, and I think we created a lot of curiosity with this story. We're going to put in the show notes how to get your free giveaway, and we'll probably have you back again. I'll be sending you my book. Maybe we can have another talk after you've taken a look at my journey and get deeper into some of the tactical stuff. So again, congratulations. Have you, because we talk about popcorn a lot, have you ever seen the movie Moneyball by any chance?
No, I don't think I have, actually.
I'm just going to do a call to action here. I know you're a guy who likes popcorn, maybe doesn't do a lot of time, but Moneyball, if I can take a minute, there's a reason for my madness here. And everybody, this is a moment maybe you can capture too. Moneyball is a movie, the lead role is played by Brad Pitt, who is a famous actor in America. And it was about the Oakland A's baseball team. And back then he was hired as general manager, and they were like, the Yankees budget was up here, the A's budget got gutted, and they were literally in the sewer. They had no money, no funding, and they gutted the team after its many years of losses, removed 3 marquee players. And so he took over the team, and in the movie they show that he created a pivot in a very different model of winning. And he made it pretty much almost to the pen. It was just remarkable. And after the movie, something happened where he was offered the general manager job for the Boston Red Sox for back then a salary of $7 million, and he turned it down. But there's a scene towards the end I want you to see about a video that his mentor plays for him when he's feeling down and defeated. He's sitting after he comes back from the Red Sox general manager meeting and turning down this $7 million salary. And he says, man, he says, I was so close. He said, man, he said, we were just so close, but we failed. And this guy played this video for him, and he said, you didn't fail. You hit a home run. And I want to leave you with that. Watch the movie, and then let's get back, talk again sometime. But you hit a home run, man, with everything you've done and with this book and story. And I hope everybody connects with you and learns more. So on that note, thank you. And everybody, find that true purpose and passion like you hear from Arnaud here. Take action and create that life that you deserve and desire. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you so much, Tom.